Hi, it's Tara Thomas Gettman with another installment of our weekly LIFTu live video podcast. A guest who's making a reappearance in the Lyft channels is Renee Patton. Welcome. She is an executive coach, has a long history with our co-founders, Paul Bernstein and Steve Reesner, and we're so happy you could join us for this live interview, Renee.
Thank you, Tara. It's wonderful to be here. I was so excited to talk with you again.
What does an executive coach do? That is such a unique title. Explain your work.
Well, I think what executive coaches really do is we work with certainly executives, but high performance employees, really anyone who's trying to develop their skills and capabilities as a leader and move to the next step in their careers. We help them to define their aspirations, their goals and objectives, and we put together joint coaching plans with them and really work with them to develop in whatever area they define. So they might focus on better communication skills or greater executive presence, or they might need help in building and motivating and inspiring teams. So those are some of the topics that we coach on, and it really is helping people to be the best that they can be in whatever role they might have.
That's great. Talk about the background and your experience that led you to be in this role.
Yes. So it's kind of interesting because I was a high school teacher. So I started my career teaching high school English and French and absolutely loved it. And I think from a very young age in my 20s, seeing how people were developing really motivated me ultimately to go into tech, which I did back in 1995. And I very quickly started leading people and teams. And as I led many people and teams at Cisco, Siemens, a couple of startup companies, started my own consulting company. I realized that what I really enjoyed the most about being in corporate and being in technology was helping to develop teams and understanding, getting the right people on the bus and then getting the right people in the right seats on the bus and then helping them to do whatever they wanted to do in terms of accomplishing their missions or developing their careers.
Why is it worth somebody's time and expense to get that kind of support? Because nowadays, so many people obviously have to think about that personal branding, which I know is a new distinction, perhaps in contrast to years ago when you were just leader of an organization, but maybe didn't have to sort of have your own identity. I mean,
Mhm.
talk about why that pursuit of working on somebody's personal growth as well as how it professionally impacts the company is worthwhile.
hmm I don't know about you, Tara, but I had, when I went into corporate and even as a teacher, I had mentors and I had people within organizations who took me under their wings and they taught me the art and science of whatever job I was doing. So they taught me how to be a great teacher. The person who hired me into corporate, he taught me how to be a program manager. So he continues to be my mentor to this day. And that's many, many years later. What I'm finding is that there are stunningly few people in companies and organizations who have mentors, maybe as we've had in the past. There are just not that when I ask people, who are your mentors? Who do you have a sponsor? How are you developing your brand? These are topics that are almost foreign to them. And it doesn't matter whether they're early in career or even some later in career people haven't had a lot of mentorship and support. And so even things like what's your career story? Where have you been and why are you interested in moving your career forward? They haven't had anyone to go through that process with as a part of their career development. And so to me, that's the opportunity. And that's why it's worth it because just being able to clarify your story, clarify your goals and objectives, and understand what makes you tick as a leader is incredibly powerful in helping people to realize their goals.
That's great, and I totally that resonates because you're right, especially for women. I mean, you think about women coming into technology, and years ago, there would not have been a lot of mentors in that space because
Mhm.
they frankly were just low populated in terms of the presence of our gender in technology.
Mhm.
And so it's wonderful that now you've been able to help bridge that gap for people. If you're just joining us, I'm Tara Thomas Gettman, and our guest this weekly live podcast interview series is Renee Patton. She is an executive coach, a long history with the co-founders of our company, Lyft. And she has a unique background, initially as a high school teacher, English and French, and also as a leadership development, and truly somebody now who's giving people that nudge that they need to move forward in their professional growth. Think of an example, Renee, where you helped somebody that really had a breakthrough because you challenged them and, gave them an opportunity to sort of look in the mirror if they didn't have a mentor to do it for them.
That's a wonderful question, Tara. I have so many different examples, and one that comes to mind, and this could be many clients, but they have worked really hard. They've worked through their 20s and their 30s, and they've gone to get an MBA. They've gotten these advanced degrees. They get to a certain level in their career, and they just feel like they should be going to the next level, or they should be leaving the company. And so they tend to be very distracted, thinking, well, of course I have to get promoted. Of course I could go here. And so I almost see them being fragmented in a way in terms of the direction they might think they want to take. So they just think that they should be promoted and become a VP. But as they move into the coaching engagement, the coaching really has helped them to say, what specifically do I want to do? Do I really want to be a director? Do I really want to be a VP? Do I really want to be a CEO? And what's the environment in which I'd like to do that? And I help them to clarify not only their values and what's most important to them, but whether or not they truly want to do what they think they want to do. So a lot of it in this one particular case that I'm considering, um, this person kept looking, kept searching, and was very frustrated by where he was currently. And through this process, he realized that he loved his job. He was good where he was, and he developed his network of support. He started going out and creating a lot of different relationships and mentor relationships within the company, and realized that he wanted to do what he was doing, stay for another year and a half, and then he would be really well prepared to go to the next level. And so I think there was a sense of ease within him that he had that structured process to say, yeah, I need to spend another year and a half here doing what I'm doing and successfully launch this product. In the meantime, build my network of support and have these leaders who will be looking out for me and will help me to get promoted. And so he's just much happier now, happier with his family, happier with his free time. He's setting boundaries more effectively, and he's just not as distracted.
I have to mention, when I've interviewed you in the past, you had a great approach to aligning one's personal and professional desires. And when you mentioned family, I know that you said that in the past that's been a driver for you, is, having that work-life balance and being a working mother, as I am. It's always something that is top of mind, I think, especially for women. We've
Mhm.
seen that in corporate America. Can you
Mhm.
speak to how do we, I guess, make sure that that work and those professional pursuits, and as you describe, so much of one's time that goes into this, potential climb up the ladder, why does that also need to be looked at in alignment with what we care about and what we're passionate about? Not just the work piece, but is this something that you're really getting fulfillment from?
It's so true, Tara. And my heart goes out to so many women in the workforce who are trying to balance family, and to so many men who are trying to do the same. They're trying to balance their family life with work life, and it becomes really challenging for them. And so I think just that whole concept of the values assessment and what matters most to you, and if it's truly your family as your North Star, how do you make sure that your life is working for you and for your family? And does this job do it? Are you feeling fulfilled in the current role, or are you so miserable and unhappy and working, 24 hours a day, that you're not engaging in that part of your life? So I think being able to say family first, if that's truly what's important to you, and then how does everything else around that complement my family time? Setting boundaries. I remember starting my own consulting company, and I would have opportunities to be consultant for these different companies. And I would just say, I'm free to work Monday through Thursday. By 3 o'clock, I need to go and pick up my kids from school, and I'll be back online by 5 o'clock. But you just need to know that my family comes first. And it was so scary, I think, to say that, but it was so empowering to be able to say, these are my boundaries. And if that doesn't work for you, I understand. But this is my North Star.
I love that. And it's so true. The setting boundaries is always helpful, especially when in both of our cases, our children, mine and yours being older now, I mean, we can never get that time back. So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
great that we both made those choices to be
Yes.
more present when they were little. I mean, that really resonates with me and so many women, I think, especially, but also you're right, men. I mean, men have to juggle it too. If you're just joining us, we're really having fun here picking the brain of Renee Patton. I am, because she is a now second guest on Lift, the content that we push out to really empower anyone who's in the professional space who's looking for growth opportunities. And I mentioned to you, Renee, before our interview, we talked a little bit about our company's pursuit around customer experience and how now this whole customer success discipline is really going gangbusters for so many companies, because what we know is people matter, and
Hmm.
your executive coaching really helps to reinforce that message. When we look at, in our case, working with a lot of clients around technology adoption, can you talk about why people over processes is the right approach when you think about ensuring that you maximize that positive customer experience?
And I think that's such a great follow on to the previous question, Tara. So when you think about setting boundaries and being able to, do what you're willing to do within the confines of the boundaries you set, that doesn't mean you compromise on quality. And so being able to say, you're going to get the best possible outcomes from me, because I'm fully dedicated to the mission and what you've hired me to do. Um, so I think in the context of your question of why does, sort of customer success matter, and I think it is really all about understanding quality and what customers truly want, and what employees truly want. So whether we have a lot of customers. We have internal customers, we have external customers. And so that whole process of coaching, it really helps people. So I do a lot of group coaching now, to reflect on success and how do you define success? We don't have time to waste doing things that don't matter or going through processes that don't matter. So let's really get to the heart of what's going to make you successful. Let's get to the heart of being able to have power and success without authority. So, how do you influence manage? How do you prioritize what's really going to matter? How do we be the best that we can be within an organization? And again, that could be with our internal stakeholders, it could be with our external customers. And I think that's where it really relates to the mission of Lyft and what Lyft is doing.
When you think about the moment you stepped out into your own entrepreneur experience of starting your consulting company, what's the advice you would give somebody who's along that path thinking, hey, it's time for me to make that move, go out on my own, or do something different? How did you get through it and land on your feet? And what advice could you share with them to take away?
It's a fun question, and it's been an exciting journey, and it's so easy to inertia is incredibly powerful. I mean, I loved Cisco, I loved my job, I love the people who I was working with, and I think really we have to listen for defining moments, and we have to listen for, the universe or whatever it might be. We have to listen to ourselves when we're getting the message that it's time to do something different. And so for me, I think I listened to those messages, and then I really tried to understand what is it that I would like to do with the rest of my life. And then I started coaching people through life transitions. And so some of my clients came to me saying, I'm trying to transition out of this corporate career and I want to do something different and I don't know exactly what it is. So that's actually been a passion project, is to help people put together 1, 3, 5 year plans that become their transition plan, And so for me, it was I'm going to coach within Cisco. I'm going to go through this coaching certification program. I'm going to see if I enjoy it. And so that was really what led me toward down this path, and to the point where I could say, okay, I think I'm ready to go. And it worked, and I absolutely love it. And it's so again, I think it's not only following your passion, but setting up the framework and the structure so that you can actually do that. Figuring out um, how much do I have and how much do I need. So I
Mm.
think a lot of times people think, oh, I have to have, this much money to retire, or I have to. And so I think the real question is, how much do you actually need? And then what do you need to do to close the gap? And what does that look like? Do you do your entrepreneurial, start your company on the side and continue to work? Do you continue to consult? Do you work part time? So there are all different kinds of, permutations. And sometimes people say, I just want to go to a different company. And yes, it's the last job I'm going to have. So I want to go and be a VP somewhere. So it's been really fun to see people navigate through their 40s and 50s and 60s as they get to the next half of their lives.
Absolutely, and it goes fast. I mean, we blink and it's like 10 years have passed, you know? So I appreciate how it's important that we have that strategic approach, definitely,
Mhm.
especially once, we get to that point, can we look back and say, "Hey, this is right where I wanted to be, and I was intentional about it." And, I can see you being successful as a coach because you're easy to talk to and you seem very relatable, and so that right there to me would be a plus because you wouldn't be intimidating to somebody in terms of their approach, your approachability. So I'll throw that out there, which is why we wanted to have you back as an interview guest. If
Well,
you're
thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, if you're just joining us, I'm Tara Thomas Gettman with Lyft, and Renee Patton is our guest for this week's LIFTu Live. It's our weekly podcast series. She was a previous guest in the past when we've shared content where we bring in professionals like Renee, in this case, an executive coach, to share her tips and tricks and advice that we hope she can give you a nugget to take away, which I think you've shared a lot already that is really helpful. I have to ask you to be honest about when people are almost stuck to the point where they can't see an exit or there's no light at the end of the tunnel. How do you handle somebody who may just be, a negative person with a negative mindset? Do you have to give them that tough talk and say, listen, you need to shake out of this?
It's such a good question. And so many, I mean, I think you're almost predisposed to doing something different if you agree to go through coaching, or if you decide to go through coaching, right? You're sort of thinking, okay, it's time for me to maybe take a different approach, or what got me here won't get me there, or I need to do something different. Or they have some presenting issue. They have some, I'm having a hard time managing a team. I have social anxiety and networking, networking events. That was one that just came up recently. And so to me, it's really being present with that individual and understanding what's behind their negativity and what's behind their feeling stuck. And without being a therapist and without, kind of pulling out the couch, um, it's amazing how powerful it is just to be able to understand where someone comes from, their relationships, their culture, what they're telling themselves, what they show the world, what their environment's like, what their practices are. And it's that's the part I love, is that discovery of what might be behind someone's negativity or their anxiety. And sometimes it's that, I mean, a lot of times it's just kind of how we're raised. I mean, we come into this world, we're like a piece of clay and we're thrown onto a potter's wheel that's spinning. And so our parents and our role models, I don't know if I told you this last time or not, but they're sort of shaping us into a beautiful vase. They're trying to. But they're not always that subtle. And so they end up kind of being a little critical and harsh on us. And those end up being our inner critics. So I've been doing a lot of work with people around who are your inner critics? So who's giving you this message? Is it Penny, the perfectionist, who wants you to be perfect in everything you do? Is it, Timmy Time, who won't give you any slack or leeway on deadlines and being somewhere at a certain time and being in a certain place? So that's been very interesting. And I think revealing for people who go through the process.
Absolutely. And see, now that you mention this, I think the fact that you started as a high school teacher really laid a great foundation for you because you had to deal with children and circumstances from all different walks of life, right, in the
Mhm.
classroom.
Yes.
So that prepared you
Mhm.
well for the landscape of the executive world for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Tell us how we can find out more information, get in touch with you for those listening who may say, "Hey, I need to talk to a Renee."
Absolutely. Well, probably the easiest way is through my website. So it's blueglasscompany.com. So again, blueglasscompany.com. And there's a button on my website to schedule a free consultation. And that's one of the best ways to explore coaching and see if it might even be a viable option or to see if we might be a fit for one another. So that would be my recommendation. And yes, I would love to talk with anyone who's interested in coaching. I'm absolutely, I'm passionate about it. So
I can tell, and it shows, and I appreciate your time. Thanks so much to Renee Patton for being our guest for this week's LIFTu Live. I enjoyed the last time we spoke, and once again, I have a lot to think about that you've really put the pause button on for a lot of us to reflect, and I think it's very much needed in this fast-paced environment that we all live and work in. So thanks again, Renee, for your time.
thank you, Tara. Wonderful to see you and appreciate your time as well.